Okay, we'll start in a few minutes, but I'm just going to mute it for a second, see who else comes in. All right. Do we have everybody in? I think so. So far, we got 6 people. So I'm going to let you guys know this is a disclaimer. I found someone threw a dog in our yard. It was blind and about 9 pounds. I posted about it on Facebook a few weeks ago, but he's on my lap right now. He has a little bit of separation anxiety. So if you hear a noise, that's him. I figured I would just warn everyone. So everyone can go in and mute their mics, and unless you're talking. How's that sound? All right. Okay, cool. So this is about herbal legacies, and there's many different ways to think about your herbal legacy. And so what we're talking about tonight and what you will participate in tonight, so this is kind of be like something that everyone's going to kind of participate in, is what you see yourself and what you see your herbal legacy path to the future being. Because the reality is that when you start your herbal path, it's about whatever it's about, like keeping your family healthy or having a job or any of those kind of things. And then, like with any lifelong work, it starts to transform itself and it starts to become a legacy product. It starts to become something like, see, you can hear him snoring. You start to think about things in a different way. So I'll share a little bit with you guys on what I'm thinking about my herbal legacy being and how I want to use my herbal career and use what I've learned and created in the herbal world to be something that can become intergenerational. So for me, my herbal legacy is creating content like my books that my grandchildren should be able to get royalties from. So that's kind of a cool thing with like books and albums and stuff like that. When you make them, your family can reap the benefit of them even after your death. So it's like 100 years after you die.
You don't stop. Every time.
So
I already know what you're gonna say. What am I saying? You don't say something about like you don't like her voice. It's too.
I can hear you, so I'm just gonna mute you, Adele. So the thing is that we can create something for the future. And so, as I was saying before, that my legacy, right, is that I am creating product that my children will be able to reap the financial benefits of later. And that's something that people don't really talk about. And it's something that is definitely part of our herbal journey. And part of the reason why I bring that up is we're talking a lot about, in our country, we're talking a lot about intergenerational wealth. We're talking a lot about wanting to change the laws, about all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like how I think about the book aspect. The other part of me is the property that I own as an herbalist. And so that's something that I am being a steward for, and hopefully maybe one day it'll be something that my children can either decide to be stewards for or decide to, pass it on. But when we think about legacies and the things that we do, it can be a lot of different things. So if you're creating product, if you are working in a way that is going to create generational income for your family, or you can take your herbal work and invest in things that are going to allow you to have generational and intergenerational wealth. That's also an herbal legacy, even if it doesn't have a picture of a plant on the front. And we don't talk enough in the herbal world about making a sustainable future for ourselves and for our families with our career. And a lot of people talk about it in a lot of different careers, and we just haven't gotten there with herbalism. So years ago, when I started talking about this kind of stuff, I was like the four-headed dragon in the room. You know, people just were like, you're bananas. And it became really, okay, in order for me to do this and to really tell people, hey, this is what we need to do, this had to become a practice what you preach kind of situation. So I've used my herbal work to assist me in also creating things that help my family in different ways. So I'd love to hear from you guys what you would like from your herbal work. And then maybe we can briefly, like with each one who's interested in sharing, kind of say, okay, so like, let's look at this or let's look at that, and kind of like talk about pathways and maybe strategies that would help make this seem less of a mountain to climb. I think part of the reason why I was so successful with a lot of this stuff is that it just didn't occur to me that I couldn't climb the mountain. I'm kind of goofy that way. I don't know if it's that I'm fearless that way or dumb. I was just like, oh, this is what I have to do, right? And so that's what I did. So does anyone want to share? Or ask a question about that? Or
I was thinking about starting something like an herb garden, but for children, you know, to where they can come and take classes and learn about the herbs. But I don't know if that would be actually a really good idea or just something that is like a passing thought.
I think that's an awesome idea. I think it can be something where you can actually teach classes and use it as a stream of income, or it could be something that you could implement with like a city kind of program or a community garden kind of program where you let the community fund it and come up with the things, and then you work as a director or directing the programs. I think that there's a lot of things you can do with that. I think it's also, I'm going to just mute you. I think someone was in their car, but so the thing is with that, and obviously unmute yourself when you want to ask a question or something. If I mute you, that just means there's a lot of background noise. So the reality is with something like that, I definitely feel like you can do something with that. I mean, it could be a therapy garden. It could be a garden where you can make it accessible for differently abled children, you know, by having raised beds. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do with something like that. So I think that's I think it's a gorgeous idea. I'm going to try to make sure I have the chat open so I can see if people type things, I can also do that. Okay, Christina Abrams says, I agree with everything you said. If I knew how to make it sustainable, I'd dive in with both feet. I think about it all the time about doing this work when I'm older and having land for my children to cultivate. I am totally on board with that. I look, land ownership is super expensive and it's super, super scary, right? It's really sometimes hard to like get behind the whole like buying a piece of land and then watching it like build itself from the ground up. But I have a son who's really interested in doing something like that with some kind of sustainable farming practices. And I can see him stumble with what comes next after you find the land. And so I do know that that can be really hard. So I totally agree with you, Christina. But if I know anything about you, if anyone's going to make it happen, it's going to be you. So I definitely think so if you if in theory, say you found your piece of land, I would write down 10 to 15 things that you could do with the land that could help generate income for the land. So it could be like, if you had, so say, I don't know, say it was 50 acres and you knew that you weren't going to cultivate 50 acres, and you knew, and some of it was pasture, you could rent out your pasture to someone who's doing sustainable grass-fed farming as a stream of income to like help pay for the land. Or you could look at building a school, or you could look at, doing larger scale plant propagation or endangered plants. So if it's really hilly, you could look at growing like golden seal or ginseng or something like that on land that maybe others don't always see the cultivation value. Does that make sense?
Yes, James Show host for 400. On October 15, 2007, he debuted in the Paul Barker studio with Fun Scuba.
I'm going to mute you, Cynthia, because I think I'm picking up the TV. Does anyone else have a question or want to say anything about what their dreams are in reference to this? No. Does anyone want me to just kind of talk about different strategies I've done to try to ensure my herbal future?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you some things I really screwed up on. So I didn't start investing in retirement soon enough. I should have done a portion of every dollar I made towards a retirement or an investment account. Nobody told me. Nobody shared that with me. I didn't come from wealth, so I didn't realize that in order to have wealth, you have to create wealth and invest wealth. I just thought you made money. So when I was really young, I wish that someone had said, for every dollar you make, put 10 cents away. Then put the tax man's money away, right? Because I would just be like, I thought like, okay, I'm paying a ton of money in taxes, I'm winning, because that means if the more you pay in tax, the more you're making, so you're like, you're winning, right? Well, I didn't invest enough when I was younger. And so that's something like that part of my herbal legacy is telling you guys to protect yourself, invest in yourself from the beginning. Get a solo 401k if you have a business or SEP. Talk to a financial advisor. They'll do this stuff for free. They'll give you the advice, some of the advice for free on what you should set up, or talk to your accountant, because you can write those expenses off. So you can write off, and they have special forms that they fill out. So if you put $35,000 away a year for your retirement, which is basically the self-employed like cap, depending upon what you make, that's probably a good middle of the line number. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor or fiduciary. Disclaimer. I'm just sharing with you how I wish I had done things better. But they will tell you like basically the amount you can put in. And if you try each year, maybe your first 2 years, you're not going to get there. But if you keep trying and it becomes a habit, you don't miss the money. So that was something I really wish someone had shared with me. And I knew all of these herbalists, and I thought, oh, wow, it's so cool. Like they're still working. And then I was like, dang, they're still working and they're 80. And I'm like, this is wrong. Like, this is not, I get it. You do your love for as long as you want, but you shouldn't have to, because otherwise you can't afford to eat, because there's no herbalist pension plan, right? There's no herbalist retirement fund. So we have to create this ourselves. And the problem is now we're all expected to be financial advisors, right? We're supposed to understand how all this stuff works all of a sudden. Boom, you're just supposed to know. The reality is just, there's lots of different people out there who will help you. There's lots of different people who can guide you in the right direction. So from the very beginning, when you set up your business and you get your business banking account and your first dollar comes in, you figure out what percentage you want to try to put into your retirement, and try. Eventually the trying leads to more and more and more success. And eventually you're going to be maxing these things as you go along. So that was one of the things that I wish someone had shared with me. I wish that we were more transparent about money in the herbal community. And we talked about things like wages and income and sustainability with each other in a more honest and open way. I think that's one of the best ways for our legacies to continue. Because if you can't make a sustainable living wage and you can't take care of your family doing this work will disappear. There's reasons why, if you look throughout history, this work kind of faded away. It's because the value was taken away from it. I remember when I first wanted to like charge for the things that I did, I was literally told you shouldn't do that. It's healing stuff and you love it. And it's not okay for you to charge money for it. I mean, like some people were really cruel and said really kind of horrible things. And I was so young. I like let it sink into my brain for a while before I was like, oh, forget this. I can't literally like eat your happiness. I can't pay my bills with your like, oh, thanks, man. That was so groovy. I can't do that. So having said that, the changing the way we talk about money in our community is going to help preserve our legacies. It's going to make our businesses that we can pass on to our family. Like the dude who owns Herb Farm, the big, huge like company or Gaia, they've got a herbal legacy. They're leaving their business potentially to their children or their family. You don't have to have a multi-gazillion-dollar company to leave a sustainable company to your family. So Lenita says, family expects this for free and it's hard to say no. You know what? Just practice it. Just say no. Tell them no. I mean, my brother is a home builder. I would never, ever, ever dream of asking him to do something for free, right? We have all of these other people in our lives who work and contribute to their community and do all different kinds of work. And we never ask them to do something for free. And if you're asking people to do stuff for free, that's something that you need to sit back and think about with yourself. Like why, if I want people to value my work, I need to value other people's work. So I would just tell them, no, I'm sorry. So a long, long time ago, like goodness gracious, a long time ago, back when the first part of my age began with a 2, my mother was always asking me for like free little gift baskets for like all of her friends. But all of her friends weren't buying from me because guess what? They didn't have to. They were getting it for free. My mom was like, basically like every time I came to her house, she wanted like a $30 to $50 gift basket and more than one. And I was like, I can't do this after a while. And I got really offended. And I told her, I said, hey, this isn't okay. Like, I don't ask you to, I don't even ask you to like watch my kids for free, right? Like, this isn't cool. And this is really expensive. And when I laid it out to her, like, look, this is what I would be making if I sold this. This is a resource. And she was very, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. Because sometimes I think family things like when we're sitting there making something, we're making like a million of them at a time. And all million of them are sold except for the 3 we give to them. They don't realize that product that we sell for, $20 or $40 or even $60, right? When they ask us for one every week or every month, it's like 20, 40, 60, 80, that it adds up and that it's actually a loss for us. So that's what I'm saying about transparency with finances and money. I'm not saying you have to tell everybody what you make, but you can say to someone, when I give this to you, this means I have to be willing to not make this money. And I think most of the people who love us start to understand that. I think another thing with transparency with money, you need to have that one person in your life that you can talk to about money and your legacy around your business. They do not need to be someone who's in the same business as you, but they should be someone who's in business and someone who's either as successful or more successful than you. So many times in money and business and finance kind of like situations, we're asking advice from people who don't have a freaking clue what we do. They don't understand our money process at all. And so why are we accepting advice from people who like really shouldn't be giving it to us? Because they're older than us. They always wanted to run a business, so they know how to run a business. We all have that person in our life. I had a person in my life, and we'll say he was an uncle. He is an uncle. And he'd always be like, hey, you know what you got to do? And I'd be like, what? He'd be telling me all this stuff. And I'd be like, no, first of all, none of that applies to me. And second of all, you don't really hold a job long term. So, and you've never run a business. I'm not sure I should be getting my financial advice from you. And I finally found a really nice way to say that, and it stopped. So I will share with you that the person that I do my money headbutting with and like really talking with and meshing things out is my brother, who owns a construction company. Now, what is a construction company owner who builds like these big, houses in New England up in the, in the ski country have to do with this herbalist who's in Virginia? How can we have money conversations about what to do next? And it's because we're talking business and we're talking money. The industry doesn't necessarily matter. He's not giving me herbal advice. I'm not telling him how to build a house, but we're talking about strategy and implementation. And one of the reasons that I love working with him, because we've been doing this kind of like every now and then, this kind of informal kind of vent about, or what are you going to do? What do you do about this kind of sessions for about 10 years. And my business is pretty much, mine's just the kind of slow growth, just good growth, nothing to write home about. And then I've watched his go whoop, all the way up through the stratosphere. But as he's going through the stratosphere, he's learning stuff that I don't know. And he's sharing that information with me. And we have a trusting and safe relationship where we can talk about the next steps. You need to have someone who you can do your next steps with. You need to have someone you trust. You don't need to be talking to someone who's going to tell everybody your money business. That's what I don't mean. I don't mean that about transparency about money. I mean, if you want to tell everyone how much money you make, that's totally up to you. But the person that you are implementing and strategizing with, or using as a sounding board, or a place to just bounce ideas off of, they need to be someone that you can trust, and hopefully someone who's more successful than you. Now, you can enter into a mentorship kind of relationship with money and stuff like that. And we do have a program for that. But overall, if you're working with someone in your community, or just someone that you trust, and they can be a friend who's in a successful business, but it's just really having that person that you can do that with. And that person is often not going to be your husband or your wife or your partner, significant other, whatever, because they're too closely invested. So when you are talking about abstract things sometimes, so I know for myself very early on, I realized that one of the biggest things for my husband is he thought I'd be upset if I failed. He didn't want my feelings to be hurt. He didn't want me to be sad, basically, right? He loved me so much. He didn't want me to like fall all over myself. And finally, I don't remember, it was a long time ago, I had some conversation and I was like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's going to fail. And then when we realized, yeah, that's the worst that's going to happen, it's going to fail. We didn't have anybody, it wasn't like, people weren't going to be fed or something like that if it didn't happen. So I think that's part of the thing too, is to realize and understand that sometimes the people who love you the most aren't always the best people to bounce the financial stuff off of. So that's another thing that I think is really important when it comes to creating an herbal legacy, because we can't sustain our work on our own. We can't be an island on our own. Does that make sense? Okay, so would the Small Business Association be a good place to go for this kind of help? Absolutely. So your Small Business Administration, score.org, joining your local chamber of commerce, or just going to some of the events, you may find someone who is like a really good fit. SCORE is a great place because SCORE is retired executives who volunteer to help entrepreneurs. So it doesn't cost you anything. And sometimes, you're going to be working with like people who, just have so much knowledge and skill, and they're not going to tell you how to do things. They're going to tell you how to look at things and to figure things out. And it'll help you with learning to make the best decisions for your business and your later legacy. So does anybody else have like an idea of like, or want to share like a thought or a way to maybe implement expanding on their idea of what their herbal legacy is going to be? No?
I'm sorry, I just got in, so I'm not sure if you talked about this, but for me, I know a big thing is like collaboration. Just a lot of collaboration with a lot of other herbalists and like-minded people.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we were saying, but totally are not. No, that's not like what we were saying at all. That's not clear. I should be clear. We were to, so I think that's a really good thing to address next. We were kind of talking about having someone that you can talk about the nitty-gritty with that isn't in your business necessarily. Having someone in your business is okay, but you don't want to have an adversarial competitive relationship when you get down to some of the nitty-gritty. The other thing with collaboration, I think that's really important. I did more collaborative work early on. Part of the reason why I don't collaborate as much as I should, and this is something you can do better than me, is I'm actually pretty shy. And I think people often think when they meet me face to face that I'm kind of a snob. I just I either resort to being like really funny or like really kind of closed off and shy. And so I think sometimes people used to think like, oh, that Demetria Clark, she's kind of a snob, and it wasn't that I was a snob. I like to sometimes, and I know you guys are like, yeah, whatever, you're a Tacosaurus Rex, but you guys are family, so it's different. But like, I think sometimes that, people would be like, yeah, she just kind of like sits there and she doesn't really say much. And then she'll ask some like really weird question, like, so I kind of like, I allowed I don't know, I guess nowadays we'd say like social anxiety or something like that to limit some of my collaborations. I will say though, some of my best collaborations that have been the most inspiring have not actually been in the herbal world for my herbal work. So you can collaborate with different kinds of artisans and businesses and make those kind of connections. I think the most important thing to remember with collaboration is that your collaborants should inspire you. They should make you want to be better. So I know at one point I did like a huge leap in growth in my business because I was connecting and not necessarily collaborating with, but having, brain collaboration, I guess, with someone who was a jewelry designer. So even though the two things were completely different, my conversations with this person made my brain work better. So I think that definitely always finding those people that you can collaborate with is really important, especially ones that make you understand what you can do better in your, your environment, if that makes sense. Did that answer your question or like speak to what you were saying?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, I apologize for coming
No,
in
you're
late.
fine. You're fine.
Um,
People go in and out during these things, so
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Someone's kids start
Um,
screaming and then they're gone and then they're back 10 minutes later. I wouldn't
Yeah,
worry about
no,
it.
I think you actually nailed it because I said like or other herbalists and like-minded people, but the truth is that most of my collaborations are with people that are not herbalists, but are just in like energy healing or sound healing, and we do these little like um like little like yoga retreat things, and they're really for me personally because I'm not shy, but I am. It's hard to explain. I'm an extroverted introvert, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think I can understand that.
And so they've really like brought me out of my shell, and every time I go to them I learn so much, and just in the way that they teach and they make me better. And so it has like the collaboration part for me has been a huge piece of really just getting me out there and building up my confidence too.
Absolutely. I can understand that. And then to that also, I think like sometimes we get so inspired by other people that we kind of like almost emulate them, right? And maybe too much, right? And so it's also good to be working with people who will help you keep you in check like
Yeah.
who will help you stay true to your voice. Like years and years ago, some business kind of expert was like, you'd make a lot more money if you put your kids all over your stuff. Like, this was before people were doing I don't know, Instagram reels and stuff with their kids like that. And for me, that never would have worked. I mean, like no amount of money could have made that work for me because of the way my brain's wired. Not that I think it's wrong when people do that, right? People, lots of people responsibly have pictures of their kids and stuff in their seed catalog. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But for me, and knowing like the way my kids were wired, like that was just not going to happen. Like every picture they'd be scowling, like really like with their Billy Idol lip up or something, right? So the reality is that I think that even when it's hard, stay true to yourself and collaborate with people who will expect you to do that and raise you to that level. So you can feel like with every step that you're taking, that you are fully able to be responsible for the work that you're doing. And I think that when it comes to building a business that's going to last a lifetime, that I think, or maybe multiple lifetimes, I think that that's going to be easier for you to then train your next person or for your children to step in the role of, because there isn't a mom who runs the business and then a mom. I mean, obviously you have your different personality. When my kids call, I don't go, Heart of Herbs Herbal School, Demetri Clark speaking. How can I help you? But, there is this thing where it is something that you can pass it on because they already know who you are and you're already being true to. So I think that's something like to think about too. And we also, for people who came in late, you may want to listen to the beginning. We did talk a little about like retirement and stuff like that. So I think that's also something with creating a legacy. I think the thing is that a lot of herbal schools don't have a long lifespan, or they have a very long lifespan. A lot of herbal businesses come in and out, right? A lot of times when things get tough, if we don't have a good framework around us, and I'm not talking about, there's times when, we were like, oh, all right, are we going to be able to do this? Because this is taking a lot of time, a lot of, whatever, right? And so having those people around you that believe in you and that you can trust and that you can go over things and collaborate with and work with and be inspired by is going to help you get through the harder times or the more, the confusing times, or, you goof something up, you just make a real, butthead of yourself and you have to come back from that. And, things always, the world happens, right? Unfortunately, the world is always going on around us, and we can't have our nice little herbal bubble that we just protect and keep safe. But those will get you through that. And if you have a partner, make sure they understand your commitment to the work. Because, look, I can't even tell you how many businesses fail in the first year. I think it's something like 70 or 80%, right? And most businesses don't really make a big profit for 3 years. That can be a long time for people to hold on. Now, fortunately, it is not hard to make a profit with herbal products from the beginning, even if you count in the cost of education, containers, ingredients, blah, 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 you're probably not even, you're not even close to the realm of like the cost of opening a cafe or a bookstore or a restaurant or anything like that. Those can be, starting at 100,000 and go up. So that means that it's easier for you to recoup those costs. So remember that too. Like you can sell, there's so many ways that you can sell now that are very, very low cost. You're not just selling at a trade show during trade show months or things like that. So even when things get tough, start thinking of a different avenue. So your products on Etsy aren't selling. Get your butt in the farmer's market. Go and talk to people who own stores. Gosh, I didn't like talking to anybody. Oh my gosh. Like I was so bad, right? And then I had 2 kids with me all the time. Like, I don't know, I was completely nuts, right? So I had 2 children in the shopping cart at this like health food store. My husband was at work. I had a box with my product. And I said, I really think you should carry these in the store. And they looked at me. I don't know, it must have been pity, right? And they did. They ended up carrying everything. And I had made a connection with the person and talked with the person. So sometimes you have to go all the way back old school, face to face. And sometimes getting into these local and regional stores is going to get you picked up by the big ones. So always remember, you don't know when your next thing's coming. You don't know who's going to see something and want it. So getting your products out locally is just as important as being on a platform like Etsy, or I think, I don't know if some of the herbal platforms are still there. I think there used to be one called Poppy or something. I don't even know if it's still around, but getting yourself out there. And even if you're like, but there's 9 gazillion people, right, who have the same thing I have. Don't look at them. Just focus on you. Make your profile stunning. Make your description amazing. If you have a friend who's like really good at copywriting, tackle them and ask them for help. Take them out for lunch and exchange. Figure out a way, right? And get your pictures on point. Have your photos be beautiful, and just really promote yourself. And don't be afraid to tell people that you're there. You know, there's so many times when I would be selling a product and I would be like, gosh, you know, does anybody even want this? And then I would get this email like, this is the only thing that's ever helped my kids' eczema. My baby has been in pain for years. This is how I can't believe it. And it's like, I think at the time their product was like $6, right? I even offered to like give her the recipe, because I was like, if you've been going on with this forever, like, or I'll sell it to you by the gallon or whatever, you know? And the reality is that sometimes when we start making those differences, I think she sent me hundreds of customers. I mean, I had a store that would order like $2,000 worth of product from me a month. And this was back in like 2005. And she just like loved everything. And people would come into her store and she'd just be like selling them my stuff. It was great. She was in Ohio, and, you know, it's just, I didn't know that is what could have happened. And it wouldn't have if I hadn't just been doing the work in all the little ways. So when you do that kind of work in the little ways, you're creating an herbal legacy. You're laying down a roadmap for people to find you. You can specialize. You can say, I'm this kind of herbalist, that kind of herbalist. I am really skilled at helping these things or these kind of people or whatever. You can totally do any of that. You can talk about, you know, where your passion comes from, who it connects you to. What is your herbal legacy rooted in? Like, so who behind you? You know, I will straight up say herbs were in my life probably because the herbs that were in my grandparents' life were because they were this close to starving. And so you learn how to stay alive. So for me, it's always been kind of like, you know, my grandfather would talk about eating things. And I'm just like, that's an herb, you know, like, oh, really? So, but I think the thing is that we have to remember that we all have this connection. So tapping into that and being like, okay, I'm not the only one starting this legacy. There were people before me. I'm bearing the torch now, and I'm changing the dynamic and my connection to the land and my family to continue this process. Is it through community gardens? Is it through beautifications of playgrounds? Is it through running, you know, doing plant walks in your community? There's all kinds of places where you can get involved in things that will eventually help your business, or connect you to, if you're really into growing things and you volunteer at the botanical gardens, they often give away their cuttings to the people that are volunteering there or working there. So then you can use that to propagate new things that maybe you're going to be offering your customers later. If you are a super skilled builder and you love building and you love herbalism, well, maybe part of your herbal legacy would be like really making a good functional greenhouse for people who want to grow certain kinds of herbs indoors, and really like expanding on that. So you get to use what you have to make something that can go for generations. I think that the thing is that we're limited by our imagination. So when it comes time to create, there's really nothing you can't like put herbs into. You'll sometimes see like herbal business logos on like even like race cars and stuff nowadays, or soccer teams, or stuff like that. So I don't know. I guess it would be kind of funny if there was like a heart of herbs like race car. I don't know. I don't really watch racing, but hey, why not? Right. What I'm trying to say is that this is the kind of thing that can last a lifetime. This is like an $800 billion industry. That's like more money than some countries have for their GDP. So, or 800 billion. Yeah. So it's something that there's no reason why you can't reap the benefits of this. Does anyone have any questions about anything because I'm going to keep checking in with you guys because we're almost done. So if you're thinking something, or if you want to know if something maybe is a sustainable or potential idea, if you wanted to, you can put it in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud. If you're an art, oh, sorry. Yeah,
It's
please
okay.
go.
First off, sorry about earlier.
Oh, don't worry about it.
My husband was like,
I have
"You can tell
sons.
them I'm a jerk."
Oh my gosh, no. The fact that someone like finds my voice annoying like doesn't bug me at all. I raised 2 boys, okay? I come from a family of 5 kids. I'm fine.
Okay. So, what was I gonna
This
say?
annoying voice
Okay.
is gonna make you rich though.
They better. So, okay, I have this. I don't know. I know it's not a weird idea, but maybe it is. So I live in a very rural area, and a lot of people, ironically, in the super rural areas, don't always reap the benefits of herbal solutions to their lives. And there's a lot of farmers, and just people who work like on their feet, right? And firemen and all that. So
Yeah.
I'm considering this. I just don't know how to make it concrete. Um, I want to do like a foot clinic, a donation based foot clinic,
There's
where
an herbalist who does that in New Orleans.
oh wow,
So if you Google that, you may, if you email me, I'll see if I can find their information. I actually like did some collaborative kind of stuff with them years ago. They probably don't even remember me, or maybe they took one of my classes, but yeah. So I think that's a brilliant idea.
okay,
Especially if you are like, licensed to do the, different footy things or whatever. I definitely think that, because a lot of farmers have like venous insufficiency and stuff like that, which can affect your feet. There's a potential, a lot of people have diabetes. Farmers are pretty rough on their bodies, right?
yeah,
And especially you're in a rural area, so half of your fire department is probably volunteer, right? So they're farmers, and then they go into a fire, right? Like, I think this is a brilliant idea. I think it's something that could work. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I want it to be donation based. I don't know if this is an unbased fear, but I feel like it's not. Like, with it being a rural area and a fairly low income rural area, it's like, I don't know how feasible it is to make it sustainable on donations only. But at the same time, I am leery of charging a set price, because there are nail salons out around that, that do foot soaks or whatever. But I just don't know. I'm like,
I
I have
wouldn't
the
do
idea. I don't have
donation.
the. Okay.
People are uncomfortable with donation. They just want to know how much
Okay.
something costs. It
Okay.
doesn't have to be expensive. Or you can also make it like you could do a sliding scale,
Okay.
right? Or you could make it, this is what it costs, and like and the reason why it's so sustainably priced is because 10% of every product that's bought goes into investing in this, keeping this option going for people. So
Yeah.
also getting people involved
Mhm.
with paying for it who aren't using the services.
Okay.
So if you have like a foot cream
Right.
that people really like or whatever, you can say like 10% of the proceeds go to such and such foot clinic,
I
or,
got you.
like, I think you could really make that. And oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. So then you have this like amazing foot cream product, right? You can also talk to the local hospitals about stocking it in their gift shop, because I used to sell to hospital gift shops, and they actually contacted me
Okay.
because what goes on when you're in the hospital? What happens to your skin? It's
I
so
mean,
dry, so
really dry.
cracked,
Yeah.
so horrible, right?
Yeah.
And so family members are always getting stuff from the gift shop
Mhm.
to, or people are buying from the gift shop for themselves to keep
Yeah.
their skin nice and soft. And we know that feet are so neglected. And I mean, that's why like, pedicures are $1 gazillion industry, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think like from that, there could be lots of ways you could go. You could even work with like a local knitter who does like merino wool socks or something like that, and have those available
Hmm.
and explain the benefits. So if people have neuropathy, a lot of people
Mhm.
really like wearing wool to help
Mhm.
mitigate pain, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And so like you have something available, and like a wool that's good for the summertime is like a merino wool. So you could like actually like turn this into something where there's lots of streams of income coming in based on the needs of your clients.
That's I'm gonna keep all this information. I'm gonna email you so you can see if you remember the New Orleans based
Yeah,
one.
yeah, definitely. Because
Thank
when
you.
I heard about that, they worked mostly with homeless and people who had like uncontrolled diabetes, right?
Yeah.
And because for homeless people, there's often a lot of foot problems, with
Right.
frostbite and water, and
Right.
stuff like that. And I just was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever heard. Like, I just thought that was like the nicest
Yeah.
thing that someone, I just thought it was so nice. Anyways,
It
I'm gonna,
really is. And
I mean,
I'm
like,
like, I
I'm like
want to
starting to
do it.
cry, like I've been having a glass of wine, but I haven't.
Aw.
I just thought it was really sweet. So,
Yeah.
I definitely think that there's the thing that you offer, and then there's all the things off of that could come
That
off
go
of that.
around it. Okay.
Yeah. Like if you knew a woodworker who could like, make you some kind of like, if they used a lathe, like some kind of like foot rolling massager thing that
Okay.
people could use. I mean, there's all kinds of things that
Yeah. Okay.
you could sell, all natural like nail varnish for people who wanted to buy nail varnish but didn't want to buy the chemical stuff, or
Mhm.
there's like there's all kinds of places you could go with this. You could have a lot of fun.
I think I'm gonna. I appreciate you.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, what a cool idea. Thank you for sharing that with everyone.
For sure.
Does anybody else have anything? I'm not sure if someone. Nope, keep talking. Okay. Well, I mean, like, so the thing is that so I think that was a good example, right? you have your core idea, and then you can start thinking about ways that you can connect it to things that are going on in your community, services that are offered, your public commitment. So your commitment to your community, like, so businesses, will often, make donations to, I always say the more money you make, the more you can give. Like, that's always been my answer to people who are like, well, herbalists shouldn't make money. And I'm like, but I can make money in the form of donating to good things, go further than if I give my time. Like, if I give my time, you're out to, I'm out like $200 for consultation, right? But if I donate that $200, that's buying like meals for kids in my community. Like, I feel like that's a better use of money. So I think that the more you earn, the more you can give is like something you need to keep telling yourself, because that's part of your legacy too. You're, like Heart of Herbs Herbal School bought like 200 winter coats one year. We just went in and I cleared out the store because I heard something that there are like 200 children who didn't have jackets where I lived. And my brain went into like total spasm. And I was like, I can't deal with that. Like, there's no reason why these kids need jackets. Like, that's it. It was like colder than normal winter where we lived. And we lived in the South. So if, kids don't always have winter coats, because it doesn't, you sit at 40, 50, but we were having like 20s, like days of 20s. And so I filled up the back of my car, and then they were all being dropped off at the police station. And I swear they must have thought I was just dropping them. The lady's like, do you need help? I'm like, no, I got it. But I mean, like, and I could have turned that into something where, they did a television, thing or whatever. I just opted not to, because it was just it's one of those things I like, this needs to happen now. Like, I don't care about what's going on, but I felt that was how my money went further. And I think that's a legacy thing. Like, so legacy is also about supporting and sustaining your community, not just your herbal community. You could have it so your business for the next 50 years, calls once a year and pays off school lunches. That's a legacy. Or you can have a scholarship for someone who's interested in, learning botany or studying herbalism or whatever. That's, that is something that you can do that creates legacy, that creates long-time name recognition, but you're also doing something that helps the community. So I think that's definitely, like, we aren't there yet in the herbal world. We're starting to see like that kind of stuff, but it's usually like, we're sponsoring this herbal conference. And I think that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I've done that myself. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, like being a sponsor or anything like that. I think it's also really important for the industry if we start getting involved in our communities like other businesses are. So herbalism tends to, at time, to be insular, and we only support like herbally type stuffs. We're not buying like Heart of Herbs bought football uniforms one year for a football team. And part of that was like, they needed it. And that was, that's something that every single one of those kids now has a different idea of herbalists and what herbalists do. And it isn't just and there's like 90 kids like involved. So like, the thing is that think outside of the box with your legacy too. Don't just keep it in the herbal world, because those are connections that you're going to make forever. So, and those are kinds of things where people grow up or people change jobs, and they're going to remember this kind of legacy connection. So definitely don't be afraid to venture into other things. Like, go to a fancy Chamber of Commerce event and meet the other businesses in the area. You'll be surprised. Like, people always will say to me, but this kind of person doesn't like herbs. Well, that's not true at all. Like every walk of life, every single income bracket, there are people who are into herbs. People would always be like, well, I don't know, like rich people just always do this or that. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, no. Anytime you start to tell yourself, well, this isn't, you're wrong. There's always someone that you can connect with who will be into your work and think that your work is fascinating. I mean, even if you went to a catalytic converter convention, right? You're going to find someone there who's into herbs. So do not limit yourself that way, because you never know where the next thing's coming from. You never know who's going to inspire you and when you're going to make a product that's going to change the world, because you're world changers. Anytime we talk about making the world better and making people feel better and be healthier and to feel better about what's going on in their lives and more secure, we're changing the world. And it doesn't have to be massive. You can change the world one person at a time. So definitely don't give up if it gets tough. Give us a call, post in the student group. If you start getting afraid of like what your next step is, then, connect, because that's what we're here for. And we want you to be successful, and we want you to feel good about all of the things that you're bringing into the world. Does anybody else have anything real quick before we go?
Yeah, sorry. Hello. Can
Hi.
you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Riorita. Yeah, thank you so much for your inspiring class. It's so wonderful. I'm so sorry. May I ask you a question? If the answer is gonna be no, it's okay. I'm gonna be totally fine. First of all, I want to also thank you for your amazing clinical herbologist career that I finished, and it was so brilliant, so great. And what I'm now trying to do is trying to combine basically the astrology and herbology together, and I will try to offer us 6 months course. So my question is it possible to advertise in a group or not really? Just
No.
maybe someone. No, it's not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And does anyone else we just have to keep that to a limit, because it'll just become a marketplace. So definitely look, if you have like a really cool product, like I ask a few times a year, like to share your links. So definitely when I do that, share your links, because I will share your links with my audience. Like I have no problems doing that. And I do that a few times a year. But if we just had it going all the time, I just don't think we'd ever get any good communication done. It would just be like a Facebook Marketplace page.
No, it's totally okay. I'm totally fine, and I thank you for your honest, answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything? I thought I heard someone.
I do.
Okay,
I do.
perfect. Okay.
So my husband is not leaving me alone on this. He said, since we're on this subject, for me to ask you this question.
Go for it.
I am a big elderberry person. I've had elderberries in my life since I can remember.
Mhm.
And I grow them on my property. And my husband is trying to tell me that I should like dehydrate them, because I have the big dehydrator,
Mhm.
or freeze dry them and try and sell them.
Mhm.
I don't think that would be very, profitable.
I think your husband's right.
Oh.
Now you look him in the eye right now and say, you're not going to hear that again. No.
Okay. Okay.
No. I think it could be a great business. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
People are always looking for elderberries.
Okay.
Always looking for elderberries. But also, I mean, elderberries can be, you can syrup them, jam them, dry them, right?
Yes.
I mean, there's, they're a food, they're a medicine. They can be used for, dyeing products. I mean, you could make homemade like silk scarves that are, once you make your elderberry syrup and you have all that stuff left behind, you can use that to dye silk. And so if someone in your family does like batik or whatever, or you can do herbal dyed scarves. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. So I think he's absolutely a gazillion % right. You
Okay.
have a cash crop there.
Wow. Okay. Well, then I guess that is something that I will start looking into.
So you have this on your property and it's been involved with you your whole life. Like you've always had an involvement with this plant.
Yes.
So this plant has been showing you your legacy this whole time.
Wow. Thank you. I never looked at it that way. It's just been a part of my life, and I don't look at it as business venture. You
So
know,
the number one thing a business has to do is solve a problem, right?
right.
And the simplest things. I mean, oh, I do think dyeing the silk is genius. Thank you, Adele. But the simplest thing to do is to solve the simplest problems. So like there's the guy who did the ShamWow towel, right? Like seriously, it's like a microfiber towel. A guy became a billionaire. I mean, that's some genius stuff there. He needed something that did something and he made this something. So I think what your husband is suggesting is everything is there. You just need to take the next step.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that he told you to ask, because I do. Elderberry is a good product for that. I mean, it grows really well. It doesn't need tons and tons of stuff to keep it going. If they produce well, it's a cash crop. So I
Okay.
would connect with your extension service and see if they have any suggestions for, because our classes for business stuff on that. And I think that and a lot of these resources are free. So I would definitely check it out. What state are you in?
Tennessee.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're going to do awesome.
Okay.
Oh, and you could even use like the dye-in stuff for like cosmetics and stuff like that, or powders that could be used to color things. I mean, there's so many things you could do from the beginning part of the plant all the way down to like the leftover waste. So there's definitely like a lot of different ways that you could go and make sure you're maximizing and getting everything you can out of it.
Okay. I will do that. I do take a lot of the waste and I make a chapstick out of it.
Yeah, see, you're already there.
Okay. Wow, I never thought of all of that. Oh my gosh.
Well,
Thank you.
Sometimes it's just talking and it brings out all the different ideas, you know?
Yes. Well, I appreciate this. Thank you
Oh,
so
yeah,
much. I'm going to
of
go tell my
course.
husband. Okay, so someone said you were right. I didn't. She did.
Exactly. Does anyone else have any questions or want to say anything? All right. Then I agree with Kathleen. That plant does have your spirit in it. Okay, so I'm gonna close this out. I hope that this gave you what you were looking for, and I'll post a link in the what's it called, in the student group, and I'll eventually get it up into the bonus classroom too. If you come up with something later, or you're like, I was too nervous to say this out loud in front of other people, connect with me. We always have a few people who email me after the fact and want to ask something. So definitely feel, you can always do that. So have a wonderful weekend. I know where I am, it's starting to get warm and we're starting to have fun with that. So I hope wherever you are, it's going to be beautiful this weekend. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending, and have a great weekend.